All right. So we are back with another episode. We have continued on our theme of special guests, and I will let her introduce herself since this is also her first time coming on the podcast.
Hi, my name is Simona Jones. I'm a current DC resident. I do some work in policy, former Howard alum. Not former, I am a Howard alum. And I'm currently getting my master's in public administration at Bowie State. So kind of work I do.
Snaps to the kid, snaps to the kid. That's what's up.
Indeed. So Henry, I will let you explain kind of this theme for this episode since you were kind of the mastermind. So I will let you kind of let us know what we're going to be talking about.
Right. So Henry has been like mad hatter crazy, just trying to like focus because you know I do this marketing thing, trying to like push content. But like the focus of this podcast specifically for us, I seen Mona tweet, like she was tweeting a lot in regards to like Bernie dropping out. And I thought that was important, especially for like us as young people, because the one thing that like we did talk about that was happening in the primaries is like a lot of young people weren't turning out. And like statistically it says like between young people and then white women, like we're the determining factor in this election for real. So for me it's important for us to engage with our peers, young people our age who can like potentially impact someone else voting. Them themselves voting is like a big deal. So that's why we invited Mona on, because I thought just hearing her opinion and why like she had certain views, it would be interesting.
So we will kind of get it kicked off with the first question that we have. We have 5 questions that we're just going to kind of go off of and then just kind of have a general topic on. So Mona, what was your initial reaction to Sanders dropping out last week? I know Henry and I were kind of surprised that he actually did it at this time.
Right.
I was pretty surprised too. I was actually pretty disappointed. I was kind of hoping he would run the length of the race until it was kind of like no room, there was no point of like to the point of return. But I thought that he was fairly close in all of the polls that had been like all the primaries that had been going up. He was only like, was it 300 or so delegates behind, which is pretty decent for most like Democratic candidates. Like he could have stayed in, but I think it was the fact that the states coming up he wasn't projected to win those that he dropped out. But I was pretty disappointed, and I was hoping that he would stay.
Why disappointed?
I mean, I don't want Biden. I mean, I don't know about you guys.
Okay, so we can talk about that within the same question because our last guest, Gabby, she kind of had the opinion that like us as like, because it's the young people that don't like Biden, right? Not the older Black people, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like we had the discussion of like us as young people, we kind of used to mess with Biden when he was like rocking with Obama, right? Mm-hmm. But now we're just like, no, I don't mess with that man, like nah. And we had an opinion on that. So before I share our opinion on that, what do you think? Like, why do you think that has changed?
I mean, when you know better, you do better. At the end of the day, I mean, before it was like he was Obama's right-hand man. We love us some OBZ. And it was just like, he was Uncle Joe. And then when you do that deep dive, when you are considering someone for an national to step into that role, some things come to light. It doesn't work out.
That's valid.
I think what you were pointing at was, I think a lot of the timing was interesting because I think when Henry and I would talk about this previously, we did think that I thought he was going to go all the way to the convention, kind of like how he did in 2016. I mean, do you think that he owed it kind of to his supporters to just kind of stay the race? I do think that it's worth noting that I think the whole coronavirus stuff messed a lot of things up for him in terms of like timing. But do you think he owed it to his supporters to kind of just say like, you know what, I have a steady base, I have a lot of support, I'm just going to keep going, even though it was definitely an uphill battle, but do you think he kind of owed it to his supporters to just kind of say, you know what, I'm here, I'm just going to see it out? Or do you think it was kind of good that he just kind of said, okay, let's just finish it here? But it seemed like you wanted him to go the distance.
I mean, I don't think that he owed his supporters anything. Not to say that, he doesn't owe them
Right, of course. Yeah.
anything, but I think that that was something that he was not owed, just because, when you're running a campaign, things are just a little different than what people see, of
Yeah.
course. So we don't know what happened behind doors, especially like you said with the coronavirus. If anything, my first thought was maybe after the initial disappointment, was maybe he thought that it was kind of inappropriate to kind of have that focus on like the presidential campaign and, still trying to get people out to vote when he was already the person behind. So I think maybe that could have been a factor, but I think that, he kind of, I don't know. I think that, I don't think he did owe it to his supporters that much, because, we don't know what happened behind doors.
Right. And I think moving to our second question, which I think was something that I was really interested in. After the 2016 election, Sanders was viewed as the front runner, as, he had the most name cachet. He built a really established brand for himself. But obviously this time around, he finished in the same place in second. What do you think kind of led to him being kind of viewed almost as a front runner before Biden got into kind of slipping back? Or do you just think that it was just kind of natural, or do you think that there was some reason why he's finished twice second? Because I'm still trying to figure that out. I think it's an interesting question.
Normalcy, if that makes sense. Like, I think that because Biden does kind of have that reputation of normalcy behind him, that Bernie would have been someone that caught voters off guard, just because of his politics are so more radical and more left than we're really familiar to see. But I, without a doubt, thought he was going to get this primary in the bag, to be honest, at first. So I think that's really what it was. I think people see Joe Biden and they see a return to normal. And people don't see that with Bernie Sanders, just because of who he is. Henry?
So like we've talked about this on the podcast too, because like you said you were like certain Bernie was gonna get the ticket or whatever. And like for me, I don't entitle like myself to be a Democrat, that's one. And then two, like with Bernie's ideas, me personally, I just felt like they were like too like, too out there for the capitalistic system that's built within the American like society, right? So like for me, like for one, like we see that like a main thing that we see right now that Bernie, like one of his like plans and the main thing he was like talking about and like talking about was like free healthcare for all, right? Mm-hmm. And we see how like in this time of a pandemic where like excuse me, it would definitely like be beneficial to all Americans to have healthcare. However, the pharmaceutical industry is so embedded within the American like economy. Do you realistically think he had a chance? Because I could be on some conspiracy stuff, but my thing is like that's like I seen an interview where Hillary was saying like Biden has the same coalition as she had, and to me it is literally like the same thing. He was like that too far left. Like if we do this, it's gonna fuck up everything. And then you have this pragmatic choice who like has the connections, has the reputation, has the resume or whatever have you, but we don't necessarily like this person. Their past decisions or whatever it may have you causes us to be skeptical that they'll actually like make change or like benefit us as Black people or minorities or whomever else. Do you think that like plays any part in this?
Definitely. I think just to go back to what you said, like how you weren't sure because he was so radical and left, I think a lot of people were thinking that as well. But I think that because of how Hillary lost, because she was so pragmatic, because she already had that history, mm-hmm. I was thinking that people would want to go even left, even further, mm-hmm. Just to kind of see what didn't work before. And I think that's a lot of people's issue with the DNC now, and even mm-hmm. with Joe Biden being like kind of the front runner. It's like y'all didn't learn anything from that first election.
Right.
Like, this really isn't what people want. Right. So I was thinking that maybe the DNC would have picked up on that and kind of would have really backed Bernie. But like you said, people like pragmatic, people like familiarity. Um, so I think that might have been why he ended up being so far behind. That is question.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and then kind of to piggyback off kind of what Henry was saying in terms of like him being considered far left. I think sometimes he gets the rap of he is very far left, but some of the stuff he's saying is not like it's not
Yeah.
like out of the realm of like possibility if we're looking like outside this country or other countries have a lot of the stuff that he's advocating for. But I think he did struggle to win over black voters in 2016, and he experienced the same issue in 2020. Who and often older voters who are like our parents, our great aunts, our great uncles, our grandparents were the ones who were supporting Biden so thoroughly, but with younger voters he did struggle. Why do you think that Bernie did kind of struggle with black voters? Because that kind of did end up being his downfall. South Carolina kind of was the first blow that then kind of later hit with all these southern states and states that were more diverse, that have more black voters, more Latinos. So why do you think that he struggled to actually connect with a lot of those voters? Because it did seem like if Bernie was able to close that margin, he would probably be the nominee.
Well, it's interesting though because in 2016, Bernie didn't have a black agenda at all, which is like why he originally like didn't get the black vote. He was like, well, we're all the same, all my socialist policies are going to affect everybody. It's going to be positive, and that's going to be fine. He wasn't even behind reparations before. So he introduced a lot of these policies now that are really progressive and that we're able to, sway the younger black voters like us. But at the same time, like older black voters are conservative. Like that's something that in the black community we should probably be a little bit more honest about.
What do you consider a black conservative though? Because I was talking to my friend about that and we had two totally different perspectives.
I would say conservative as in they don't really depend on the government. They don't really believe in the government so much. Not conservative in a way of like Republicans are very conservative, if you know what I mean. But in more so a way like they're still very much behind like the idea of black business. They don't really trust they wouldn't even really trust a healthcare for all system. Like my aunt is she's like a 60-year-old woman. She struggles with leukemia. She doesn't want healthcare for all. She has a great private insurer. You know what I mean?
That's real.
So there are some older, more established, I don't want to put it that way, but kind of in that way, black people who have kind of felt like they did pull themselves from the bootstraps. And these are the people that are going out to the polls. Mm-hmm. So they do kind of identify more with a moderate and more with some conservative ideas. Now that they are conservative, but they definitely can find a way to kind of meet that moderate system. I don't think they identify with Bernie at all. And also a lot of Bernie is we love the feist. We love the feist. That older black people do not like that. They feel yelled at. Personally, I think that Bernie kind of comes off a little harshly, like, hey, you need this, you need that, like, this is what we're going to do for you. And I think that it doesn't really resonate with older Black Americans the way that you would think that it would. You know what I mean? They've lived through a lot of times where they were given promises and given, hey, we're going to tell you what's good for you. And I don't think that Bernie really came off as a voice for them.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really interesting part that you get to like the tone of his candidacy, that it was, I think the strength of it was that it was very aggressive and that it got people to engage on a very hardcore level among people who were supportive of him. But for those who were kind of like on the fence, it probably turned them off. But do you think that Bernie, do you think that he had, because I would say that the one kind of main critique that I would have of his campaign was that he was very uncompromising. It was kind of like, we're going to do it this way and this way only. And I think that did solidify him like a certain number of support, but like I think he was never really able to get beyond like that high 20 kind of range. So do you think that he probably should, with hindsight of that now, he's not going to be the nominee, do you think that he probably should have tried to like do more engagement among Black voters who are a little bit older? Because I think that would be like the one critique that I would have, was that he kind of just like, he ran this one lane and you kind of have to be able to talk to different people in different ways. And it seemed like he was never really willing to do that. That's my understanding of it, or that's how I kind of saw it. I don't know how you felt or kind of felt about just kind of like how he overall tried to message his campaign.
Yeah, I agree. I don't, I kind of, while I don't think that he shouldn't have tried to reach out of it, I'm kind of a fan of him running in his lane,
Yeah.
and kind of going ham there. But I think that the more political thing to do would have been to try to reach to that side and be a little bit more compromising. But I think Bernie really wanted to stay true to self, stay on brand, and just kind of go gung ho. And not to say that I don't think that was the best thing to do. I mean, clearly wasn't the best strategy, but I do think it does a lot for his rapport to say like he's a man of his word, he's a man of his brand, of his aggression, of who he is. He's like, nothing that comes from Bernie is inconsistent, which is, I think, is something really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can say that, and then I'll let Henry go. But I think he is probably one of the more authentic politicians, which is very rare, which I did think got him a lot of like cachet, was that he wasn't just gonna, if he said it, you knew he actually meant it, and he wasn't gonna like
exactly
really care if it got him flat. Henry, what were you gonna say? I know you're about to jump in.
I think that's because I guess I come from a more like I do I consider myself Black conservative? I don't know, but I don't really believe in the government for real, especially like helping us. So when like saying stuff like that, and like Bernie specifically, Noah, I never really liked him because he never like directly addressed us. He would like phrase us as those people or the working class or whatever. And I personally didn't like that. So like with Bernie, with him being so like radical and so like I don't want to say stubborn, but what's the word you guys use? Authentic and like true to himself.
He's stubborn.
Yeah, he is.
Bernie's stubborn.
Yeah, he's stubborn.
Right. So like with that, how could you like be a progressive politician if, especially when like Republicans are like they got the Senate, right? So with that, you gotta like do a little give and take. We got the House right now, thankfully. But like how we know like a Democrat gaining the presidency isn't gonna have a backlash on like all of that. So it's stuff like that because like they blocked Obama terribly. So imagine what they were gonna do to Bernie. Like that was just my whole mindset behind it. It was like he's not gonna get nothing done. Bye. Like that was just me. That was me personally.
No, I mean I don't think you're wrong there. And personally, just like, I mean, have you met like normal radicals, like not even politicians?
That's right. You're right. That's real. That's real.
Like they don't budge. They don't budge. Like honestly. So I think it's like it's kind of a double-edged. I mean, I don't want to say he wouldn't have gotten anything done, but I think he would have pushed a lot of envelopes that would have eventually gotten things done, if that makes sense. Like just kind of like kept it inching forward, if that in that way. You know what I mean? Because I mean, but think about it, like how, like even 10 years ago, how much of us were thinking of healthcare for all, or even now I'm not giving that to Bernie. I'm not giving that to Bernie at all.
I mean, the funny thing
but
is,
I'm just giving it to like that kind of like idea of pushing it. You think I could?
I know. I mean, I think that's the one, and we'll kind of get into kind of like the progressive movement and his legacy. But I think that the one thing that he did do was, after 2016, he made Hillary go to the left on stuff. Most of the candidates on the Democratic debate supported some type of national health care system. It wasn't just out of thin air. Like that was because they saw him do it and he had support for it. So I think, I mean, he did push the conversation to his left, and I think that any candidate from now on, that's going to be their litmus test. And if you can't answer that question, you saw Kamala. She couldn't answer her own question about healthcare, and that, among other things, that hurt her. So I think you had a good point of that. He did actually push stuff to the left for me.
For sure. And I just want to go back to Henry's point of like not feeling seen as someone who was kind of like, who was like a moderate African American. Like, you know, I think, and I hate to say it, but I don't think he did want to be seen by you, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think he was looking for you. I don't think he was like, you know what I mean?
That's my problem with him. That's really like you said, he wasn't checking for me.
Yeah, he wasn't checking for you.
Checking for them like middle America, because we talk about this in the podcast again. To where like his supporters, they go like back and forth. They could be Trump supporters or Bernie supporters. And me personally, I don't understand that, because like, where are your morals and your values within all of that? That's first. And then two, he wasn't checking for us as Black people. And me as a Black person, like, that's why I didn't vote last time. I didn't vote in 2016. I openly said that. That's one of the reasons we started this podcast, to like help people like me, which we're gonna have an interview later this week about that. So me and her gonna really get into it. Tune in. But like, basically, like, I didn't feel represented. I mean, Trump, like, I don't know this motherfucker, like, he a Republican anyway. Like, he seemed racist, he's rich. Like, I don't vote that. And then boom, all this comes true. Hillary, she just stuck up there. So
I didn't hear you went out. Sorry. What'd you say?
I did it on purpose because I was. I was like, nah, she's this like lady that I don't know. I've only heard like bad things about, and then
I'm screaming.
People were like telling me about this conspiracy of like her killing Gaddafi and all of that. I'm like, whoa, like, hold on, wait, he was a good one. So it's stuff like that like it was just in my head. And I was like, you know what? They got it. Trump ain't gonna win. He gonna win. And then I wake up and he wins. So like, to my surprise, like, that's why I'm so like, oh nah, we gotta get this. You know what I'm saying? I have to be tuned in. I have to vote. I have to be do anything I possibly can to like help the situation, right? So it's like, yeah.
No,
the funny thing is, I think Bernie had some issues in communicating directly to Black people, but I think a lot of the issues that he brought up would help them the most, even though he probably didn't say it the way we wanted to say it, if that makes sense. Where I think like the stuff he was pushing, like minimum wage, student loan stuff, that probably would help Black people the most out of any other group who are more disproportionately affected by issues such as wage inequality, student loans. I just think his issue was that he presented it in this class warfare type of thing. And I think sometimes you kind of have to like be a little bit more.
Read the room.
Right.
That part.
But I think the biggest frustration I had with him was that I think he was speaking a lot to people like us, like our economic interests. He just didn't present it in a way that made it easily understood for us to be able to say, oh, shoot, this issue of wage inequality, this issue of healthcare, I think he tried to kind of broaden it out. And I think oftentimes he tried to say like, it's a us against them type of thing, which I get, which is very much true. But I think sometimes you have to like focus it down and just be like, Black people are not getting this type of wage. I'm trying to limit that. It's short and sweet and to the point. It doesn't include like a macro theme of how the rich are exploiting people. But I think do think to your credit, I do think that he actually did. A lot of his policies would have benefited Black people the most. I just think he didn't package it in a way that was good for that.
Like, isn't that always the problem? Mona, you was about to say something, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I think we might be actually about to touch on the same thing.
Okay, so like I was about to say, that's always the problem with me and politicians, and like not even myself, but like why Black people as a whole aren't necessarily engaged with politics, because one, they're never directly like speaking to us. It's always like Bernie, the working class, these people who need healthcare, so on and so forth. And like, I get it. All of us might fall in the same group. But like, let's say housing, for instance. Housing directly, and we take DC, all of us stay within the DMV area. We could take DC, Atlanta, any major city, to where gentrification is happening on a crazy basis. They're going into low-income communities where it greatly affects Black and brown people, right? The government isn't putting any policies or anything in place directly speaking towards like the protection and safety and not like disenfranchisement of that community that has been built there. They're literally allowing contractors to come in, rebuild it, and like replace, displace the people that are there that the community was is for. So it's stuff like that that's embedded within the socioeconomic issues in which Bernie speaks toward, that if you don't have a specific plan for it, it's gonna keep happening. That's how like redlining happening with housing and like you know what I'm saying, black people getting access to like loans and you know what I'm saying, able to attain some type of wealth. You can apply that across the board from business loans to shit, healthcare, all of this. Like, it's never anything directly specifically speaking toward us. And then even you want to say black people, I sometimes feel like we need a separate agenda from I'm gonna sound a little prejudiced, but the other minorities, because not because we were here longer or anything like that, but like one, we greatly contribute to the economy, as do they. But for us, it has affected us in a way in which like it becomes like a ridiculous cycle into which you got 3 generations of moms living off food stamps in the same like project neighborhood or stuff like that.
So I have a couple thoughts about. Okay. So I want to talk about what you just said, but I also want to go back to Noah's point. Just in the fact that there is a history of like even just Democrats across the board, not even like progressive Democrats, just saying, "Oh yeah, this will help Black people," and then it doesn't at all. So for you to not attach a name at all and to not be specific at all, like that is definitely not going to have people trust you. And I feel like Bernie also assuming that we are aware of some kind of that everybody is knowledgeable of this like classist kind of system is a little bit of a privileged way to approach it.
Right.
Like to approach going at an election, So and then that even goes back to our other point of like there are a lot of I don't even want to say older Black people. I want to even say people our age are very pick up off the bootstraps. So if you're just like, hey, like minorities, low income people, they're like, well, that's not me. I work. I do what I gotta do. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not something that a lot of people identify just because they're like, oh yeah, I'm struggling, but I'm still working hard. So I think that it was kind of like, I just think that his messaging, especially the first first go around, was not there. But Henry, also I want to talk about what you said about like, now like on some we've been here longer thing. What did we so wrong if we went that way? You know what I mean? Because that's the whole case of reparations right now. We've been here a very long time and we don't have the wealth.
Okay, because I can speak directly towards that, because that's why like so like reparations, is it gonna happen? I don't think so. But like, do we deserve that? I personally think so. With that, it comes like when I say like, that's why I said I might sound prejudiced, because us as Black people do need specific plans in place, because those other minorities do. Like for instance, if like an Indian or Italian or somebody else come over here, right, and they apply for a business loan, do you know that like for like it's between 5 to 10 years, the interest on that loan is way lower than something we would get. So it's stuff like that to where it's set in stone in place to where like other people are benefiting from systems that we don't even have. So like, to go to your like question, yeah, we can't argue that longer. Like, we've been here longer, we deserve this, but where's that gonna get us realistically?
I would almost frame it in the sense of like, if the government spent 100-something years actively working against our benefit, they should be able to. They should be able
how
to,
I would frame it too.
right. They should be able to come up with a plan that benefits. Like I think what Henry was saying about like housing, there's really a book that talks about openly about how the U.S. federal government actively was trying to put Black people in certain neighborhoods and keep them from being in certain places. So if they can do that, if they can work against us, then they should definitely be able to work
with that
in our interest. Yeah. So Zoom is telling me that we have 8 minutes. I'm going to get to our last, our last general question.
This was good. We're going to have you back. FYI.
Yeah, I love the back.
So the last question that we have is, as we talked about, clearly Sanders is the head of a larger progressive movement. Nobody was really talking about a lot of the issues that he was until he arrived on the stage. Now that he's not, his time in presidential politics, I'm assuming, is over. Where does kind of that progressive movement go? I'm assuming that he's going to kind of take a different form in that, but kind of, I think he has started a movement, but I think, what do you think about like, how does this all go do you think it's more of just kind of demand, or is there really a general movement behind? Like, where does this all go from here? And I think that's something that I have no idea, obviously. Like,
I want to say that I am very grateful for Bernie for stirring shit up. I love it. You know, like
I'll agree with you on that part. Because at least he put the ideas out there. Between him and Warren, I'm like, thank you
they stirring it up. I think that he's the face, but I don't think he's by any means like the most radical out there. I think that there's a lot of on the ground people that are putting in a lot of work, a lot of people that like, I mean, I don't know if you guys know about Bernie's camp, but there are some wildfires. Like, did you guys hear? Yeah, there are some wildfires. So I think that Bernie was one hell of a spark, and I think it's only going to get more chaotic from here.
I would agree.
In like the best way possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think. No, keep going. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think from now on it's gonna be like he's setting, like he said, he's setting up a litmus test for certain issues, like where if you don't support a national healthcare system, people are frankly going to be on your ass if you're not like trying to like, if you don't support a $20 minimum wage, if you're not for eliminating all student loan debt. I think he did just say like, here's where it is, and if you're not here, you're not helping. And I think that is kind of good to say like, we're going to set the line here and you pick which way you want to go on it, and if you don't, like, we're going to come after you. So I do think that actually adds a lot of like clarity, which I think we don't have enough of in so much Iraq.
Yeah, definitely. Something that's going to hold you accountable, something tangible. You know, I don't think we really, I don't know. We were young before, so maybe something we didn't see, but I think that he really shifted it. And now that these ideas came from him, but I mean, just be able to put it on like a national stage and say, like, this is a reality. This is something that could really happen. It's something that I could really bring as like the president of the United States, was just like very dope. And like you said, you know, 2016 and 2020, these have been two completely different Democratic like campaigns that we've seen. And that's just dope. But you know, I think Bernie though, I think his time is up. I think it's over. He's older.
It's done. It's okay.
He's a lot older. I don't think he's gonna be running for any more politics. Like,
I mean, he gonna have to shut up like Hillary did.
I don't think so. That's the only thing. I don't think.
Question to Bernie, because is he one of them people that just know how to go back in his corner and play his role, or because like if he's still in like the House or Senate, where he at? He's senator. I'm tripping. I had like a little slow moment, but if he go and play his role there and keep like pushing ideas forth and right, and you know what I'm saying, legislation that benefits people and works toward that agenda he was attempting to push, I think that'd be cool. But for him to like attempt to run again in wherever you like, he might be dead. But for him,
hang out with his kid,
right? Like it's stuff like that to where it's like that's what makes me concerned about Bernie, you know? Like, does he
like
know?
if he can just let it go in
right, like, do you know limits?
Yeah.
You gotta,
you don't think so? No? I think it would be good if he took it.
I don't know. I think he's just going to be a shit stirrer, which is fine. Like, I think he's going to like be like, I'm going to be the furthest left out here on a lot of stuff. Either you're with me and all of these people who support me, or you're not. And I think that's just something that I think he's very aware of that. Like, I'm going to drive the conversation behind.
What does that do for the democracy of America?
I think it brings people like AOC out. Like AOC and to Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, I think it gives them a way to like really be uplifted. And these are like the next class of like really progressive like congressmen and people that are taken seriously and going to be writing the next laws. So I think that if he can be a person that really uplifts them, uplifts their platforms and gives them validation as a senior senator, I think that would be a really good way for him to still like, you know, stir some shit up, but still, you know, fall back as an old head.
People on.
Yeah.
So on that note, Mona, we thank you for coming on. If you want to drop your social media or anything that you're doing, anything you're working on, or anything you want to drop for us, now's your time to shine.
Okay. Well, let's see. Y'all can follow me on Instagram at Simona Francine. You know, that's my IG, or my Twitter, which is a mess, _ Black Fran Fine. And I don't really have anything in the pipeline right now. But be on the lookout because some things are coming up soon. But thanks you guys so much for having me. This was really
course. So you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at WRGO Pod. Be sure to subscribe on SoundCloud, Spotify. What else are we on? Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts as well. YouTube as well. This video will be on YouTube, so I'm waving at everyone who is on the camera right now or who will be watching. So Mona, thank you very much. Henry, I will probably talk to you tomorrow twice. So
right. Thanks again, Mona. We appreciate you so much.
no problem.